Okay, well, comrades, first of all, it's been a very, very good discussion, and it's interesting to know how people have reacted to the first of all the nomination, and then the way that Corbyn got on the ballot paper, and did people vote or not. And I think to sort of jump right to the end question about in or out of the Labour Party, I think I agree, well, I do agree with the position that a number of people said that's really not the main issue, which I hoped I addressed when I started out. It's not the main issue about whether people do join or not join the Labour Party. The question is, how do we as a group of Marxists relate to the process that is taking on politically? Obviously that has an organisational aspect, but I think our main job is to try to engage politically with these tens, if not hundreds of thousands, particularly of young people, as has been stressed, who are looking to Jeremy Corbyn and his programme as a programme for hope, a programme for something different, a programme for change. There's no other way of explaining why hundreds of thousands of people have signed up and then voted for Jeremy Corbyn, except as an understanding or an expression of hope. And it doesn't matter how naive or how experienced they may be, they are hoping against a background of 30 years of the right-wing domination of British politics and neoliberalism and austerity. They're hoping and praying almost for a change. And we've got to engage with that, tap into that, and say, this is what of course we need change. How do we explain the disgraceful scenes of migrants drowning in the Mediterranean or being caged in Hungary, except on the basis of a world that is dominated by exploitation, that doesn't care two hoots for people in trouble? How can we explain food banks? How can we explain all of the problems that people see, except on the basis of the system that we're confronting? It's capitalism. And this takes me to what I think is a fundamental point that we need to constantly raise inside the Labour movement. That this is not just a question of challenging austerity. It's not just a question of challenging neoliberalism. It's a question of challenging capitalism itself. It doesn't matter, it's not just the last phase of capitalism, neoliberalism. It's capitalism in its entirety as a system, which can go through rebranding, reformalisation. But we're now in a system which is a stage of capitalism, not like the post-war economic boom. It's not the basis upon which welfarism, social democracy, the welfare state, Scandinavian social democracy was constructed. It's not that, and we're not going to go back to that. So Jeremy Corbyn is trying to put forward a weaker or watered down version of what was achieved in the past on a completely different economic basis. And Syriza is the consequence. Another point that we might want to note, I mean, I've read pretty much everything that I've seen that Jeremy Corbyn has put out and all the articles about his speeches. He doesn't tend to mention socialism. He doesn't tend to attack capitalism. And a lot of the people around him, if you look at Owen Jones and so on, it's about the stage, it's about neoliberalism. It's about managing this system, essentially. It's about managing capitalism. And so we've got to explain that that's inadequate. What we've got is a surge of enthusiasm for something that is very, very positive, as I said earlier, that allows us to engage, but we've got to critically engage. And we've got to think a lot more audaciously about how we can do that. I mean, we put out the magazine, we're going to make the magazine monthly rather than bi-monthly. We should think about, putting up videos, about having a TV channel, radio programmes. Obviously all of this takes organisation, it takes money, it takes individual involvement and so on. But we've got a lot to say, and we need to make sure that we put that out there. We've got to try to engage with all of these young people and say, well, even if, for example, even if Jeremy Corbyn were capable, and I don't expect this to happen, but say Say a Labour government was elected in 2020 and it tried to implement Jeremy Corbyn's programme. Could it succeed? Or would it run up to all sorts of problems? Even if it did succeed, what would be left? We would be left with an overwhelmingly dominant private sector in which exploitation of the working class continued. Now, is that something that we want, should advocate, should support? No, it's not. So it shows the limitations of his programme. Now, for these 100,000 people or so who have joined, we need to find some way of, they need to be organised. I don't know whether Jeremy Corbyn is going to organise them. I don't know if the left, some of the left are going to try to organise them. So something has to happen. They have to be organised around something. And we need to be involved in that. We need to put forward proposals ourselves, think about what we could be proposing along with others on the left to try to galvanise and organise that movement. Again, I come back to the position that doesn't mean, in my opinion, joining the Labour Party. If people in the ISN want to join the Labour Party as individuals, of course that's up to them. I think that we should continue to discuss it and see how things develop, but that certainly is not my position at the moment, that we should advise or encourage people to join, because it's almost as if we're advising them to join in order to put their weight to the service of a different political agenda to the one that we are putting forward. If we've got limited time, enthusiasm, energy, then that should be going into building our programme, our policy. Now, on the points that Nick raised earlier, can the Labour Party be changed? Can it be turned into its opposite? I don't actually think it can. But even if it could, it won't simply by being a few dozen or a few hundred or even a few thousand people joining the Labour Party. I think it will come about through building a socialist party which relates to the Labour Party and possibly engages with people who are working in that.